Hello, friends, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Cinemondo podcast with Kathy, Mark, and Burk talking about movies.
Movies.
Yes.
We're going to change it up a little bit, and we're going to talk about movies.
Yeah.
Today's
episode, you have to stay tuned to the very end because we have a shocking twist ending at the end of this episode.
Well, that will give you a clue of the director and the film that we'll be discussing today. And he's M. Night Shyamalan, and his latest film was released last year called Old. And we'll also talk about him in general, his films, and what we like about them.
Yeah, this is one of those movies that just came out on streaming. It reminded us like, we never did a review of this film. And this might be a good time since people now have access to it easily. We could talk about Old. And, we didn't review it before. It was, pandemic-y. We didn't go to the movie theaters.
Yeah. And it was shot shot during the pandemic. Yeah. And so it's very much that kind of film. But before we get into it, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Or also, you can listen to our Cinemondo podcast. We've got a lot of different episodes.
Yep.
And so we appreciate everybody who checks in and subscribes and comments about anything we have to say about movies, whether they're U.S., Indian, worldwide, TV shows. We have it all here.
Right. And try Super Thanks. It gives a little extra love. You get a little animation. You get a tag. You get a bright color on it. We notice it. We will respond to it. We'll give you some extra attention. And if you want to suggest something with your Super Thanks, we will review it.
Yeah. And you could win a lot of money if you play the lottery in your hometown.
If you go to Vegas, you can do that there too.
Yeah, you could win a lot of money.
You could put money in your 401k.
That's good.
Not now though. You'll lose money now, but you could get money later.
Careful with that. Yeah.
How about a piggy bank?
And we need a disclaimer: we are not financial advisors. We are not certified in any way.
In fact, we're financially disastrous.
If you would like to have financial advice from the Cinemondo podcast, you should probably do exactly the opposite of what we recommend.
Do not listen to us, except for the Super Things. Definitely do that.
Yeah. And we talk about when movies, that's where you come to us because we know our stuff.
We know a lot of shit.
Yeah. And this film came out last year during the pandemic. It was actually released at the theaters. But of course, they kind of get lost because nobody was really going to the theaters last year.
Yeah.
But this is M. Night Shyamalan's latest called Old. And he's such an interesting director. And let's first talk about this movie. In general, it's basically about this family that goes to this exotic resort somewhere, beach resort, and they're going through some trouble. You can sense there's some internal strife in the family. Domestic problems. But they're offered, hey, if you want, by the hotel manager, while they're at the resort having lunch, hey, if you want something special, there's this beach that we can take you to, and it's just it's primo,
it's sort
beautiful.
Of secret thing. Don't tell anybody. We only tell our special guests about this private beach.
Yeah, so they're like, sure, let's get it. So they get in a van and they drive, and the van is driven by M. Night Shyamalan, who always puts himself in films.
That should have been a clue right there.
I know, right?
It's like in a van and it's being driven by M. Night Shyamalan.
Run away immediately.
Exactly.
Especially if he's dressed up like a van driver. It's like,
aren't you a director?
Aren't you?
No.
I gotta go. So he says, just walk down that path, like, aren't you going to help us? It's more than just the family. There's another couple there. Rufus Sewell is in it, who I always like.
Yeah. But there's something weird going on, something sketchy when M. Night Shyamalan van driver is like, no, I can't help you with that. I got to get back really quick.
Gotta go. Bye.
And I'm gonna go. And if you have a problem, call me. I'll come back and get you at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And bye.
But there's this huge like picnic, this food that's like tons and tons of food in this this huge picnic basket. So they walk through this weird cavern, and
like a crevice in the rock. Very tight.
And then they come out on this gorgeous beach, this sort of like secluded beach that looks stunning, and there's
sort
cliffs
of stunning, but it was kind of weird and claustrophobic because like the cliffs were so high, like
so
it felt like a huge wall, and then the rocks were really big, and the ocean sounded kind of aggressive, like crash.
Yeah, no, there was a vibe to it.
It was beautiful, but you're kind of like, this isn't the pristine blue Caribbean looking ocean I expected. It's kind of a
And also, I would just want to be back at the resort by the pool.
I know,
Yes.
yeah, or just the regular. But the thing is, they did make a point to show that the regular beach was kind of crowded, and and the young girl, she sees all these kids, and they're all playing, and there's people everywhere.
I would run the other way.
And she's just kind of looking around, going, "Ugh, there's so many people here."
There's so many people.
It's a classic resort. You go to Hawaii and you expect this pristine beach, but it might as well be, like in Santa Monica or something.
There's people there with their Bluetooth speakers and stuff. And like, oh, come on.
It was not. It was why I don't go to beaches. It's because when I go, I feel like I'm just with a bunch of crowded people that I don't like, and everybody's super tacky and throwing trash on the ground. I'm like, I'm out of here. Yeah. I would be the person like, isolated beach, no one there, sign me up. I'd be one of these victims.
I've been to places like that in Thailand. But it's not here.
Yeah, exactly.
So they go there, they go to the beach, but there's already somebody there.
That was kind of weird. There's kind of off sitting there.
There's kind of a guy just sitting there, and he looks kind of perturbed, so they're
looks
like
upset. There's something going on.
I guess we'll go over here. That guy's weird.
Yeah.
And also you feel like you're on your own a little bit because they just kind of dropped you off. And and no one's there, and it's kind of a long way from any help because you have to go through that cave and up a big mountain.
Yeah,
it's already scary.
Yeah, it's already creepy. Got a creepy edge.
Like, what if one of those people? I mean, this could have been a different story. What if that guy sitting there, that kind of guy, dark looking guy in the corner, like in the shadows, looks like he's got his sunglasses and he's just kind of glaring at them. What if something is weird with that guy?
Right. No, it's terrifying. It's the classic sort of travel horror. You're going someplace you're not familiar with, but you're out of the safe zone and you're somewhere completely. But you're thinking to yourself, well, worst comes to worst, I walk back out and make a phone call, find the seltzer, and then they come grab us. I mean, that's what you would think. But then, things start to get a little crazy.
These little things
not the way you think.
Yeah, these weird things start happening, and they're like, a body washes up.
That was interesting. And that was weird.
So there you go, and they're like on the phone, and it's like, oh, can't get any cell service, which is, classic.
It's those freaking mountains that seem to be getting taller every second. You just can't hardly see the sky. It's like, what is happening?
That subtracts one of the possible ways to save you from this weird island.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, let's go back to the place where he dropped us off. Maybe there's reception there. One guy walks through this crevice and he starts feeling weird, and then suddenly he's back on the beach unconscious. And they said, you came wandering out of there like you were high or something, and you passed out. So somebody else tries, and the same thing happens. It's like they're trapped on this island. Mm-hmm. And then other weird things start happening. They start feeling weird. There's like these weird feelings, and it's very nicely told the way they do it. I mean, obviously, if you've seen the trailer for this, and if you notice the title of the film, they are aging
rapidly
on this beach, just on this beach. And it manifests in an interesting way with the children, because as everybody knows, children age really quickly. And the kind of things that go through, and in an older person, the aging isn't as obvious to a middle, like a young, like 30-year-old or whatever. When
they just
30 and 40 is no big deal, but between 8 and 18 is huge.
And you get the older people were kind of doing stuff like they couldn't quite see as well,
right?
Or like they were kind of hinting that their hearing was a little off, and also like Rufus Sewell started getting really emotional, like kind of sporadically weird, like. His inhibitions were kind of dropping away, so he got kind of oddly angry all the time, just like an old person.
And he was saying things like
weird things, and his mother was like, I don't feel so good, I feel, and she was the oldest person on the beach. And I guess we can get into spoilers here, but we
already kind of did, but that's okay. It's an old movie, and it's called Old. So if you're not sure about what this is about, it's about getting old.
So, but what happens is, as you see the children getting older, obviously something is really screwy. The Rufus Sewell's mom dies, and they finally, she dies of old age,
withered away.
And they realize, these are smart people that, oh my God, we're aging. Like the children are growing up really fast, and anything that we have within in our system is starting to accelerate. I think Rufus Sewell obviously has some sort of mental issue,
Alzheimer's or something.
Alzheimer's or dementia, and that starts kicking in. And when stuff starts happening, he's a doctor, he's a thoracic surgeon. So, if something happens, he's the guy they got to go to.
Right.
Because so at first you think, oh, thank God he's there. But then as he's performing a certain surgery, he goes, wasn't Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando in a movie?
He started obsessing.
What was that movie?
What is that movie that Marlon Brando is in with Jack Nicholson?
And then all I did was start thinking about that. Like, what is that movie?
I finally figured it out like halfway through the movie. I said, oh.
What came to me too.
What was it?
I think it was the Missouri Breaks.
Okay.
Right?
Oh my God. A movie no one would ever think about. But well, the thing I thought before, I'm slowing it down a little bit. I'm not aging this movie as fast as I loved the cinematic stylistic choice of the kids, because they start shooting them like from behind or just a piece, or you see a little bit of their hair. So you're not really even super aware that they're getting older. Like at first, like
the reactions on their
and people are still
parents.
talking to them like they're kids.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're like, how old are you? Like the other people are like, so how old are you? And they cut to like Alex Wolff. He goes, I'm 8 or whatever. And they're like, you're clearly like 18. I don't know what you're talking about.
And Alex Wolff is great, of course, from Hereditary, and he's so good playing an 8-year-old.
That was really funny.
Subtly. He didn't overdo it.
Because really, their bodies are changing, but they still mentally do not have the experience to really inform actually getting older. So they're acting immature because they haven't matured in a mental way.
Thing that they did do with speaking of like brain development, is that when you're a child, your brain can't do certain things, but then when you get older, it can. So there's a scene where a very little girl, like a very young girl, I think she was like maybe 5 or something.
Yeah,
she becomes, now she's like a teenager, and there's a scene where she's like, I don't know if this is the dialogue, but she says things like, I can think about things that I wasn't thinking about
more
before.
than one thing at a time.
The whole world, it just seems so different to me now. It was really cool the way he thought about those kind of developments, and not just your body gets older, but your brain becomes more functional.
Yeah.
That
was cool because when you think about it, when you're a little kid, you have this sort of like, I am the world.
Yeah.
That is all that matters. And I have parents. That's pretty much your experience. Or whatever you're obsessed with. Horses or whatever. Right. As a girl, I have horses. And then as you get older, all of a sudden you got all these layers, all these things you're thinking about. And it's all, your brain's expanding, and you can think about how your body feels and how you're thinking about this guy over there, and you're looking at the sky is blue. So all of a sudden the complication of thought became this like,
really.
I love that they brought that up.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
And also the acceleration of the aging was like very surprising. Like you're like, oh my God, like, like that girl that was 5 all of a sudden is like 18, and she's lying in the bikini, and then she's lying in bed with Alex Wolff, who's also, about the same age.
Yeah, explain that one to me.
They start caressing, and then next thing you know.
Because the weird thing about this movie, and this is my major complaint, is that it pulled so many punches that I feel like I was a little confused on what actually occurred. Like, they didn't want to show any sex. They didn't want to show any real violence. They cut away from all the violence. Like, it was very clean. They wanted to keep it in a certain rating or something. So I feel like as much as it was like a horror movie, I feel like it was very sanitized in a weird way. So when they showed those two laying together, and you're like, are they having, like, I was never totally clear until we see the result.
I think they wanted the reveal to be the shock, like when she comes out and she is,
but it was creepy to see them laying together.
Pregnant.
That was really good.
Her pregnancy is like already at 9 months or something.
That was horrifying.
And she's like, "Oh, what? I got fat,
Yeah,
and everybody's like,
and he's like, "What did you do?" And he's like, "We were just playing.
We just laid there, and then something happened.
We were just playing. What happened?" And he's like, "Whoa, what happened?" It was. I think that stuff was done really well.
That was horrifying.
It was done in a way that was so weird,
and it was accelerated.
Yeah.
So she got pregnant, and giving birth like within like an hour.
I loved. There's a great tracking shot around the beach where that's when she goes into labor. So they sort of watch that. Then they kind of go. People are freaking out now. So the camera just moves around to like Rufus Sewell's wife, who's like freaked out about the fact that her daughter is pregnant and giving
Yes.
birth. And so she's sort of crumpled over. The camera goes back to like they hear the baby crying. So they start walking back. The baby's crying. Then the baby stops crying.
Right.
I mean, it's like all of that happened in one shot. And I was like, man, I love this. I love stuff like that. The cinematic vibe of it, was really cool.
And it was just the speed of certain things, like the 9 months of a pregnancy happening in just an hour or something. And then why did the baby die? And somebody says it died of negligence. It's like you didn't feed it fast enough. It was like
it's impossible
it couldn't
to feed
handle the aging process in that little body. Just done.
And as the young people are aging, they're getting that food out of the thing, and it's wrapped in this metallic things, I guess, that are protecting it from the effects of the island, and they're just eating this, like pasta
Stuffing
salad,
their
like handfuls of pasta salad.
Yeah.
That was funny.
And it's all this sort of, protein kind of food,
Yeah.
So the movie had a strange muted staginess. Like I felt like I was watching a play. Like everybody felt like they were kind of emoting. And I felt like for such good actors, I didn't feel like it was well acted at all. It felt very dry and cardboard.
I kind of felt the
and I'm
same
like,
way.
it must be a choice. So I'm thinking, is this fake? Because everyone's acting really weird, right?
It was weird. I mean, some of the dialogue is pretty
but
ripe.
Consistently, So it seemed like an intentional choice to make this very flat and theater like, but I couldn't figure out why they would want this choice of these good actors acting badly.
Like old Twilight Zone style, which I know. M. Night Shyamalan is a huge Twilight Zone fan.
Clearly.
Maybe he was going for that vibe of a kind of an alternate style of reality.
That's true.
Because the story was so unhinged. It's such a nutty story. It's such a Twilight Zone. It would have been a great 30-minute episode of the Twilight Zone.
So
sure.
good.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have to say that I enjoyed watching this film.
Me too.
And the resolution wasn't as satisfying as I wanted it to be, but it was a resolution that kind of worked.
It did.
Kind of, yeah. There's problems with the film. There's no doubt, But I'll say, like, he's making his own movies. He's in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
He writes and directs these things. He kind of has carte blanche.
They're original ideas.
They're
All
not-
this stuff's very
they're not a
original, whether it
sequel.
works or not.
It's not vanilla down. It's not by committee. So, it's his movie, warts and all. Thank God there's some people that are still doing that.
Still trying to do something different. Because I really had no idea where this was going to go. I mean, was everyone just going to get old and turn into skeletons and be on the beach? I mean, I was like, what is going to happen here?
But there's this weird, I mean, like, I know it's kind of corny, but there's the sort of like, the kid was doing the little, where the coding and there was, and he figured out that, there was a code that kind of gave them the answer for maybe trying to get out of this situation.
Yeah, that's right.
Kind of interesting, but I'll tell you, they had pretty good lungs to stay underwater for that long.
Yeah, I don't know. Every time I see that stuff, I'm kind of holding my breath too, going,
I do too.
And also just swim through a tunnel and you have no idea where your oxygen is going to come from. It was, and I almost feel like I was disappointed they got away. I just feel like they shouldn't have gotten away. It felt awkward to me. They didn't need it. Like they show up and go, surprise, it's us. It's like, I just seem weird. I don't know.
I mean, sometimes I think he's caught with, I've got to resolve this movie. I just can't leave it open ended. They expect me to come up with some sort of satisfying, and so he's going for this quote unquote satisfying ending where they escape and the bad guys get found out,
But I feel like their escape was pointless. I didn't get the point of it at all. Like, I feel like you could have had them just turn into dust and go away in the ocean breeze. I think that would have been a great ending.
Some new guests.
Yeah,
right.
Because it wouldn't have affected ultimately the ultimate ultra cynical, hyper political craziness ending, which I liked. I mean, I liked it, but you're just like, oh man, that's such a grim, terrible ending, but it makes sense. But it still felt really cynical, but that's okay. But at the same time, I feel like what he was really exploring was like people and the fear of aging in general. Like not only illness, which was a lot about illness, because everyone there was coming off of an illness or had, like the one woman had terminal cancer and this was her last hurrah. Like, so you have that plus the fact that people are afraid to get old. And when they start getting old, you're having this accelerated experience of losing your hearing, losing your eyesight, not being able to run down the beach and be, out of breath, like these little. And so I love that idea of him exploring that because that is terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and also, the young people getting old fast, they lost their childhood. They didn't even get to be kids. They even talk about it. Like, we didn't get to have an experience of being a growing up teenager where all of a sudden we're adults.
Right.
So I love that concept. But
Well, to get
the
totally
escape was,
spoilery, yeah, there is a thing at the end where these two kids who escaped. They were kids at the beginning of the film, but now they're total grown up adults.
A day
like
later.
40s or something.
A day later,
They come up and they go, "Are you a policeman?" Because they,
Yeah.
you're the
Yeah.
cop, right? Yeah.
because he asked him before. He knew he
Yeah.
was a policeman. But then they're in the a helicopter at the end, and the guy says, "Well, you guys are gonna have to go live with your aunt," and you're like, "Oh yeah," because they don't know how to take care of themselves.
They don't know how to live. Never worked a job in their life.
Yeah, and they're like, "Was she okay?" And it's like, "Well, how would you feel if your 6-year-old nephew called up and now he's 50?" And it's like,
Yeah.
and they're just they kept them kids, which was kind of cool. They were
It was.
still, they looked like 50-year-old people, but the way they acted was like, "Oh, we're gonna go live with our aunt,"
It was also weird to have a bunch of different actors playing them at different ages.
Yeah.
I mean, I get why they had to do it, but it was a little disorienting seeing a bunch of different actors thrown in there.
Yeah, you
Playing
had
the
to
same
do it,
people.
but-
And
Yeah.
I get going to Alex Fox, who actually looked a lot like the kid. I mean, they
Yeah.
did a good job there, but the jump to the older people
Yeah.
got very
Yeah, it's tough to. I bought him, Alex Wolff, I bought him as.
Yeah.
He looked
Yeah.
like the 6-year-old actor. I thought
Yeah.
that worked.
It
But
did.
then as they got older, it seemed a little. Well, okay, we have to kind of go with it because it's the reality of it. But
unfortunately, a huge part of selling that type of idea is having actors who look like the people.
right,
And you can get away with it in another kind of film where it's not that big of a deal, but you follow these people through multiple stages, so
Yeah.
you really do need to keep track of who they are too.
there's
Like,
and
who
there's
is
a cut.
that? Is that
Yeah.
supposed to be the kid?
yeah.
But there were some nice touches of the aging. I like when they had to pull the tumor out, so they
Yeah.
but they keeps but the suture keeps the cut.
Yeah, so I had to
keeps,
keep holding it.
yeah,
That was really cool, actually.
and it was
Getting bigger and
it
bigger.
was like the size of a grapefruit or something, or even bigger. It was crazy. So
But
it's
there
an
were some
interesting film.
questions, like
Yeah,
some of the
what's some-
questions that you ask about films like this, where you go in and it's like, well, wait a minute, what about, every time I take a trip, all of my friends know that I'm going on a trip. I went on a trip recently. You guys knew exactly where I was going,
Right.
and you knew exactly where I was the whole time because I put pictures on Instagram, and anybody listening can go see my Instagram pictures.
We refer you to Burke's Instagram. And we'll put a little ad.
No. But you know what I mean. You have to explain all that, social media, online presence, kind of thing, and also GPS and all these things. But I think there was a little line at the beginning of the film where the company had a private airplane, and when you went on this trip, you got the trip by responding to.
They
something.
approached you.
But
and said, "Here's a great deal."
CVS receipt. It was like
Yeah.
a receipt from the pharmacy.
Yeah.
So they
Yes.
knew what your medical condition was by the prescriptions that you
Yes.
had. So in your receipt at the pharmacy, you would get this little thing like, "Would you like to have a free trip to a beautiful island?" And there's
Yes.
a website. You go to that website, you set up the trip, you get some kind of deal. It's the kind of thing I would never in a million
No way.
years do.
No.
But I guess some people do because there are things
Yeah.
like that. You think it's going to be some kind of, religion
Right.
thing or some Amway thing, or they're going to
Yeah.
try to
Right.
sell you something.
Yeah, it's a like
property.
timeshare.
Yeah, timeshare. But some people do that.
Some people do
do
that,
it.
and these people.
But I mean,
do
also
it.
technically, these people are only gone for a day.
Yeah.
I mean, all this shit happened in one day. Like, I wouldn't
Right.
miss like someone not posting their social media in a day. And
But
by
the
then they're all
missing
gone.
person thing, like if I went on a trip and I was gone for a day, and then a few days later you still hadn't heard from me, you'd
Yeah.
be like, what the hell? The last Instagram
Like the
picture he did, he was in Burbank. He was on a beautiful vacation in Burbank. How come he's not posting anymore?
Did
Well,
they
yeah,
say
because-
anything about that?
Well, no, but there were other people. Obviously, this was the
Yeah.
another
trying to
long
think how
line
they
of
did
people
handle
that,
that.
Yeah.
that have done this for a while. Obviously, he's been
And if
working
people
because
are all going missing at this one resort, wouldn't that raise a red flag eventually? But
I think they were
the
all in on
explanation is that they had that private plane. They thought they were
Yeah.
going here, but they were in fact going here.
yeah.
it. Right.
And So the missing people were being reported as being missing from various different places. So it wasn't
Right.
drawing attention to the one place. It seemed like this
Oh,
resort
yeah.
company has resorts all over. So when you get on that private plane and you take this 5-hour flight to wherever it is, or 10-hour flight, it could be going in any direction.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah,
Right.
you
That's
know,
kind of like the show From. I don't know if you guys watched that. It was on Epix or Epix, where these people are driving like from all over the United States, just going on a road trip, and they end up in this small town.
Oh.
And when they try and leave the small town, they end up just coming back to the town. They can never leave it.
Mhm.
So they're stuck there. And then at night, these creatures come out and they try and kill you. And that's sort of what it is. So,
Gotcha.
but
yeah.
people have been living there for years that they're just on a road trip and they just disappear. They become just
Right.
missing persons.
Right.
And they end up in this sort of alternate reality, and they don't know how to get out, and everyone's just considered missing. But they come from all over, so no matter where they drove from, they end up in this town somehow, even if that's not even where they were headed. So it's this
Right.
weird sort of,
Interesting. Yeah.
it's actually a really cool. It kind
I
of
like-
reminded me of this a little bit. I mean, the creatures at night look like people you know, sort of, and they try and entice you to come outside or to let them in the house. And if you do
Oh.
that, they tear you apart.
That's
So they're
kinda
not
cool.
monsters. Like they look like little kids, or they look like a nurse or your grandma. They're really cute, and then you get out there and you're just dismembered.
Weird.
It only
It's
happens at
called
night.
From?
So, yeah, and everybody can
That's-
come out during the day and live a normal life, but you have to be in at night.
Well, what was that movie that we watched a while back? We reviewed it, where the people go to this
Southbound.
What was it?
I think it was Southbound. Wasn't that like that
Lost.
anthology?
No,
So, it was
it
the
was
anthology
one where
one.
they go to this like suburban neighborhood, and all the houses look alike.
Vivarium.
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 Vivarium. Yes,
Yeah.
with
And you're-
Jesse
they can't
Eisenberg.
get
Same
out.
thing.
They
They
drive
can't
and
get
they
out.
always come back to the
Exactly.
same place. This movie had that kind of a vibe to it, where you're
It
in
did.
this sort of alternate reality and you can't escape. It's
Right.
an isolation horror. It's travel horror.
Mhm.
But it does have that sense of a Twilight Zone episode where
Yes.
what if this weird thing started happening?
Mhm.
Yeah,
And I love those kind of stories. It's a simple,
Yeah.
the premise is people are getting old really fast.
yeah.
That's basically it. And what do you do? I mean,
What do you do?
I
What
would
happens
panic.
then? How do you play that out? And it's fascinating to see what M. Night Shyamalan does with that, because
yeah.
What about the scene? Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that scene where Rufus Sewell's wife, I can't remember the character's name. She has a calcium problem, so
Right.
her bones start to,
Oh yeah,
that scene.
that was good.
that's
that was
nutty
kind of
scene.
crazy. It was
Crazy
like,
horror
wow,
moment.
Yeah, that seemed
weird.
a little out of
It felt
character in the
way.
film.
I agree. That felt
didn't really
very
work, yeah.
strange. Yeah, but
It felt like the studio watched it and said, "It just doesn't have that big scare in it. Can you add something creepy?" Okay,
Well,
let's
they
just
didn't
have
show
this
a
woman's
dead
bones
body
breaking.
earlier. Conspicuously didn't show a dead body, and they
Mm-hmm.
conspicuously didn't show other horrible things. But then they showed that, and it was really, really grotesque.
yeah.
Well, that was
yeah.
the weirdness of feeling like almost like a TV movie where they didn't really they cut away a lot, and that was the one they didn't. And you were kind of like,
Yeah.
I guess because it was so fantastical, it looked kind of like it looked super fake and weird, but they didn't really show any of the creepy violence. They didn't really show any of the really extreme gore. They didn't, none of the, I don't know, and none of the sex. Like they just sort of went, oh, we'll just go away from this right now.
That might be his choice, or who
It is
knows?
his
I mean,
choice.
again, it's like there's a lot of interesting ideas in the movie, and it's
Yeah.
very watchable and interesting.
Yes.
I really dug it, but there are a lot of
Very
quibbles,
entertaining.
a lot of
A lot of
problems. But that's okay. It's like, again, it's like
It's fun.
that's his choice. We don't have to
Yeah.
love it, and I'm okay with that.
I would just tell people just watch The Servant instead. It's so much better.
Yeah.
The Servant is great because
It's so much better.
his daughter directs a lot of the episodes,
Yeah.
and she's really talented.
Yeah,
and
he
it's
directs some of them.
He does too, and it's set in Philadelphia, of course, because all this
Yeah.
stuff is. I mean, this is obviously set in some beach somewhere, but the family is from
Beautiful
Philadelphia.
beaches.
And it's very, very set down. Like it's pretty much everything happens inside this house. That's pretty
Yeah.
much it. Like there's a little bit of outdoor stuff, but it has that sort of alternate reality in a way. Like they're all inside this insane brownstone that just is crazy and beautiful, but kind of claustrophobic and falling apart in a weird way.
Yeah,
But
so,
it is a great.
so he's an interesting filmmaker,
He is an interesting-
and
He
yeah,
is.
even the hits and misses, but he's doing his own thing, which I appreciate. So, and I think
Yeah.
Well,
Old has a lot of good things in it, but a lot of things you go,
Before I
So-
watched Old, I rewatched The Sixth Sense
Mm-hmm.
for maybe the 100,000,000th time. I've seen it so many times, but actually not that many times. But I hadn't seen it in a while, and I watched it, and it was like, gosh, this still has the same impact.
Mm.
And everybody knows how it ended, how it ends. I did not know how it ended when I first saw it, and I was so fooled by that film.
Yeah.
I remember, when I saw it in the theater, I remember this feeling of, okay, people in the theater around me are kind of reacting like they know something, or they're seeing something that I'm not seeing. Like, what just happened?
The reveal
And
was very strange. I was confused by the reveal. I was like, what's
Yes.
happening?
then it hit me, and
Yeah.
I got it late.
Yeah, me
I
too.
got the message late.
Yeah,
Me
it
too.
was-
I got
it
a late
was
too,
really
but
cool.
it's a great, yeah. So that's a great, I mean, his films are, the Unbreakable's a good one. There's some
Yeah.
other ones that I like
I
too.
liked The Village. And then Burke, you had mentioned the farmhouse, The Visit, which is,
Oh,
or Mark
I
did
think Mark
Yeah.
saw that
earlier
one.
when we were
I
off
haven't
mic.
seen that one.
That
I
was
haven't seen
actually
The
another
Visit.
good.
The
It's a
Happening
good.
was one that was just
That was bad.
I didn't see that. How about Split?
Split was
Yeah.
great.
Split's really good.
I
So,
really liked Split.
so he's I watch all his
It
movies.
didn't lead into Unbreakable. Oh no, wait. Split
Glass.
led into Glass,
Glass.
which was not good.
which was not good. So you take the good with the bad, I guess, with him. I mean,
Yeah, but you're getting
yeah.
something original, and that's
Yes.
why I give him a little slack,
It's
because
his
I'm
world,
seeing
yeah.
stories I haven't seen before. I'm seeing him
Right.
play with genres and give me something new, even if they don't
Right.
always work.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think his direction of actors is suspect. He's not always great on direction. I
Right.
mean, like in The Happening, I mean, John Wahlberg was, what the hell?
But
That
it was
character.
one of those movies that I watched the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, you watch
Happening
'em.
Was I watched the whole thing. The
Yeah.
ending was like, okay, that's. The
I don't
ending,
even
I
remember
guess.
the
Okay.
ending for that one.
It was, yeah. I mean, it was
Plants.
plants. Yeah,
Right. It was
Revenge of the Plants.
Revenge of the Plants. You know what? I probably don't
Dave-
remember because I agreed with the plants. They should get
Right.
revenge.
Day of the Triffids kind of a thing.
Yeah, without the
but-
Triffids, but without the coolness of having Triffids
Right.
running around.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Triffids, man. They've already
Yeah.
made it work. Just use it.
Yeah.
But he's trying to do something original.
Yeah, and he's so I apprate that, and
Yeah.
I always will. So I think you keep making movies, and I'll always watch
doing
them,
it.
you
We'll
know,
watch
and,
it. Yeah.
but Old was after it was over, I said, man, I really like that for warts and all. I thought it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
had something.
It was definitely
kept
one of
me-
his stronger ones, even though it didn't
Yeah.
all work and it had an odd tone. I still watched it and liked it in a way.
Yeah, yeah. All right, that's our take
All right.
at M. Night Shyamalan's Old. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys soon. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.